hands.
Yep. All right. We got a question from Sean D.
Okay. Hey, everybody. What's up? Welcome. Sorry, I was late. I had to go to this family lunch birthday thing, and I rushed back, but it took a lot longer than I thought. The traffic was it took double the time to get here. But today is Diddy's, what's this guy named Intercity Press? Diddy's bail hearing. Will he be let go? Will he come out free? Will he get to party in his house? Run things from his house, pop some pills, have some parties. Let's see how much okay. We didn't miss a lot. We didn't miss a lot at all. Okay. So in the courtroom, Combs' attorney, Tony Rico. What happened to Agnifilo? Tony Rico has come back into the gallery to speak with Diddy supporters. Alexandra Shapiro sitting, reading from a binder. 4 prosecutors in the front row. Drum roll. Sean Combs is brought in wearing an MDC jail tan uniform. He makes a point of hugging his lawyer, Agnifilo. Then he sits chatting with Rico. While we wait for the judge, Arun, noting that Combs are his lawyers, are sitting at the middle table of 3 tables, so the 2 U.S. Marshals, rather than directly behind the defendant, as is usually the case, are on the sides. All rise.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
Combs' lawyer Rico, the family of Mr. Sean Love Combs are here. They traveled a long way. The judge said, "Thank you for being here. Mr. Agnifilo, tell me about the legal pads." So Agnifilo says, "The first time I saw them was Tuesday." The lawyer says, "As we sit here today, I'm not sure when legal was written on each of them. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. Different members of the defense team was telling him to write legal on the pads. There is a photo of a pad without legal on it." And that's where I left off at. So they just kind of started. Let me refresh this. I'm trying to catch my breath. I ran up here. Okay. Combs' lawyer Agnifilo. So it's clear that on November 1st, the sweep, they did not all say legal. I'm talking about the notepads. The judge says, "The pad you handed up to me, did it say legal on it November 1st? Agnifilo says, "I'm not sure." Judge says, "Moving forward, make sure representations are true." Yeah, it's a big deal. How you not going to know? Let me see what else we got. Okay, we're caught up. So we didn't miss much. If you guys could hit the like button, I'd appreciate that. Hope you're having a good day. Hope everybody's all right. Donna Barnes, thank you for the 10 months. Says, "Hello, Mel." Mel, hello to Handsome. Thank you for all you do for us. Thank you so much. Diddy Day. Are you guys ready? Oh, but by the way, while we wait for an update, I don't know if you heard, this is crazy as shit, okay? This is crazy! Crazy. Attorney representing alleged victims, okay, sued for assault. Divorced client says champagne flute was used as a weapon. So this is Tony Buzbee. This is the guy that's supposedly representing allegedly 120 Diddy victims. 120. Now he's being sued for assault. What the fuck? You can't make this up, right? A woman suing as Jane Doe claims to have been a former client of Tony. She's filed a lawsuit. Everybody's catching heat. Alleges that the attorney assaulted her while repping her in a divorce case. Oh no. Not only that, you guys heard about Conor McGregor? Conor McGregor was found guilty. Hold on one second. We'll check in with the court in a second, but right before I started driving here, I checked my Twitter and it's all over. Conor McGregor, he was found guilty of, they're saying, rape in a civil court. Oh my God.
Do you have a reaction? Do you have an apology to the women at the centre of this?
How important is a role model to young families?
Dude.
What do you have to say about
Isn't that crazy? I don't know that whole story though. I need to read up on it sometime. I don't know what happened. Oh shoot, I'm sorry. What am I doing? Don't touch the buttons, Mel. Alright, let me see for other court updates. And we're going to do a poll too in a few minutes. In a little bit, we'll do a poll to see what you guys think. You think they're going to let him out? Right? Hey, everybody, thanks for joining. Happy Friday. The judge says, Ms. Slavic, what's the status of Mr. Combs' laptop? Ms. Slavic responds, the laptop for him to review the discovery at the MDC. The idea is to preload the information he is allowed to have at the MDC on laptop. There's a protective order. So I guess they're going to get P. Diddy like a laptop for that type of stuff. Laptop.
Take the documents, review them in camera and chambers, and make your decision. Why do you need briefing on this? It's not something that's rocket science. Any young lawyer can determine whether the documents are privileged or not.
We have another update from court. Elizabeth, I'll turn to you on this one. This is from the judge. Ms. Slavic, this is referring to Christine Slavic. She is the AUSA, the Assistant United States Attorney, the prosecutor in this case, one of the prosecutors. Ms. Slavic, what is the status of Mr. Combs' laptop? And then she responds, the laptop for him to review the discovery at the MDC. The idea is to preload the information he's allowed to have at the MDC on the laptop. There is a protective order. Interesting they're talking about this because one of the arguments put forward by Sean Combs' defense team is he doesn't have the adequate resources at the MDC to properly prepare for what is a complicated sex trafficking and racketeering trial. What is this exchange about, you think?
Right. I think they're probably pointing
Russell's
to
house,
an issue
probably,
with
yeah.
privacy. And like you said, him being able to properly be able to put on his defense. You know, if he's someone who's in home detention, he can meet with his attorneys in fair confidence, you know, discuss things more freely. In prison, you're really not afforded those same privacy rights. So I think that's an argument that his team is going to be putting on.
Nima, I've got a question. This is from Sean D. Cole again on YouTube. Please keep the questions coming if you have a question about this hearing. If you have a question about this case, make sure to submit them now. This is, with this being the presiding judge, meaning Judge Arun Subramanian, is this Sean Combs' last chance for bail? I don't believe so. I believe that he put he could go to the Second Circuit and had petitioned the Second Circuit, but then put it on pause, waiting for Judge Subramanian to ultimately decide this.
Okay, another update. The judge says, on the bail application, I don't have to deal with the Busatini case. The defense is saying there are extensive conditions proposed, including 24/7 security. What about the Fox case? Prosecution says there was no RICO charge in that case, just as agreed. Yeah, because Diddy said he agreed. Listen, you guys want to monitor and watch me 24/7? I'll do that. Okay, I just got a picture. Birthday lady. Shit, are they gonna let Diddy go? I'm just trying to think. Are they gonna let this guy go? I mean, you guys think if they let Diddy go, let's say he gets a bailout, I wonder how much he's gonna have to pay. But you think he'll leave the country? Or you think he'll stay? He's gonna stay in the country and go through the process and all that stuff.
A case, the appellate judge is really more prone to being guided by former precedent. It doesn't mean that judges don't overturn decisions. They do all the time, but they are more privy to be bound to prior decisions. Here in this instance, this is his third attempt before the hearing today to be released on bail. You have two prior judges who have said no, you know, for various reasons. So I think it would be harder in the in his appeal process.
All right, talking about the bail, we now have an update on this. So Judge Subramanian says on the bail application, I don't have.
Okay, we just heard that, so we're good. It's nice to have Law and Crime though, because we can hear from some of the experts and they give some commentary. I think I don't know if these are lawyers that they have on or not, but they're giving some type of analysis. I don't know, man. Will they give him bail? I feel like I'm leaning towards no. I don't know. He's going to have to pay a lot. They're going to have security on him. I mean, the prosecution was already saying that, like, he uses other people's phones, even in prison and outside of prison, to contact witnesses and intimidate them and do all kinds of stuff. So,
don't you need to hold a hearing? Shouldn't you call witnesses to prove that? Now, it's not they don't have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. They're not trying to say he's guilty of obstruction, but doesn't there have to be more than just taking the government's word for it?
Not necessarily if the judge takes the government's word for it. And, we've talked about Jeffries, but I think the more on point case, recent case in New York is Sam Bankman-Fried. Here's someone who was granted bond, started contacting witnesses. There was electronic evidence to support that he was reaching out to witnesses and trying to alter and change their testimony. And his bond was revoked and he was in custody all throughout trial. So I think that's the case. Look, I believe the government that they have evidence that these witnesses are being contacted by Combs or through intermediaries. They're not going to raise these allegations unless they have the receipts to prove it. So hopefully they do so. But I don't think you need a full-blown evidentiary hearing in a case like this or any bond hearing.
Elizabeth, you would agree with me that there was no reality where Sean Combs believed he was not going to make bail. The reason he was so cooperative with law enforcement, he'd surrendered his passport, said he was going to sell his plane, came to New York to be arrested, hadn't left the country, right? Even though he knew he was going to be arrested. It seemed to me he thought he was legitimately going to make bail, that he would be on house arrest for a year, 2 years till trial happened. I don't think he thought that this would actually be a reality, right?
I agree. And my theory is that all of these steps were taken by his attorneys and by his legal team to hopefully assure that they can show the judge, he's not a flight risk. He's put up this $50 million bond. He's prepared to put his home up for collateral. All of these steps he surrendered to his arrest. So all of these steps to put forward to try to argue this is not someone who's going to flee. He can be trusted with home arrest. So I don't think he anticipated this.
Going to that, Elizabeth, we just have another update from court. Again, we're providing live updates about what is happening in that courtroom, considering there are no cameras there. Trust me, I could go on and on about how much of a mistake I think that is. But the judge says, I want you to address the proposed conditions, meaning the bail conditions. And as we talked about, $50 million bail package, 24/7 home confinement, no internet use, no phone use, limited visitors, visitor logs. Prosecutor says there has to be some level of trust that the defendant will follow him. Here, he will not, meaning not follow the rules. He cannot be trusted. Consider his conduct in custody after the two judges' findings, meaning there were two previous judges, Judge Carter, Judge Tanofsky, who both decided that Sean Combs was not entitled to pretrial release, not entitled to bail. What do you think about that?
Correct. Yeah, that's a really fair point. The two prior judges have denied and said he's not allowed on bail. So when you have those two decisions against you, I think most defendants would say, okay, I need to be extra cautious, make sure I'm following all the rules. I'm not incurring any potential legal troubles moving down the line. There's allegations that, he has contacted parties through third parties. He's made phone calls. So I think there's a substantial amount of information there to show that there is possibility that he could try to tamper with witnesses or obstruct certain evidence.
Nima, one of the arguments put forward by the prosecution was if you take the allegations as true, he's able to use other inmates' PAC numbers to make essentially calls to people that are not listed on his contact list. If he's able to use three-way phone calls from jail to have improper communications, what the prosecution says, is there any belief that he wouldn't manipulate a private security team that's supposed to watch him?
Of course, that's working for him as well. And like you said, that's an absolute rule violation. Can't use another inmate's PAC number, can't make three-way calls. And apparently he's doing all this. And when he was out, he contacted a witness dozens of times. So this is all evidence of obstruction. If I'm the government, what I do is I supersede, I add those obstruction charges, not necessarily because I think that's going to add additional time, but I think that's going to be helpful evidence for the jury to hear at trial that Diddy is trying to dissuade these witnesses. That's going to bring all that evidence in.
To show that he's guilty. Why would he be obstructing unless, of course, he thought he couldn't win this on the merits? He's trying to actually obstruct the case, influence witnesses because he knows he's guilty of that. That would be the argument. Elizabeth, we have another update from court. The prosecutor says his attorneys are enabling his flouting of the Bureau of Prisons rules. Consider the labeling of the pads after the fact, meaning they marked it legal after the fact. That's interesting. Even family members, and I said that the idea would be that he's enlisting his family members to create social media campaigns, reach out to people. The judge says, what's your response if Mr. Combs says, even if they don't trust me, there'd be 24/7 security? Prosecutor responds, if he can't comply in a custodial setting, he will not comply if released. What type of security firm? They suggested a co-conspirator, one whose phone was taken only the day before. Didn't know that. That's who the potential security firm is. The second suggestion was a defense investigator in this case. And the prosecutor goes on to say that investigator has been out contacting witnesses. Essentially, they work for him. This would be the defendant buying his way out. The judge said, you've conceded that Bustani's bar does not apply here. You've cited his wealth to release him, so he can't use it. We'll get to that second argument in a second, but if that's true, this is who he was proposing to watch him?
Yeah, it's a fair point. And again, I think if you consider if he's, let's say, confined to his home and home confinement, I think there's even more opportunity for him to be able to utilize the team and the people around him, whoever they're working for, to be able to work within his favor. And also, this is not somebody who's going to be confined to a tiny little studio apartment. He has huge homes, huge estates. There's a lot of room for him to potentially go about continuing possibly the behavior that the prosecution is alleging he's already been doing.
One of the other interesting arguments that I love to talk about here, Nima, and I'm curious if it comes up, prosecutors said there's a two-tiered justice system. Why would it be fair that Sean Combs has the resources and the wealth to turn his home into a private prison, and he should be out waiting trial on sex trafficking and racketeering charges when somebody with lesser means wouldn't be able to do that and they don't get bail? Now, the defense says, wait a second. The only reason we're proposing such an expansive and expensive bail package like this is because of the very problems, the very concerns that the prosecution has. You say it's his wealth, that's a concern. Well, we're going to show you, we're going to create such a package that alleviates any of those concerns. The reason it looks like this, and it's so expansive and includes 24/7 monitoring and all this, is because of what the prosecution said. You can't have a sword and a shield at the same time. You say he's wealthy, you say he has the resources to flee, to do what he wants. Well, we're going to use that to try to negate those concerns. Where do you stand with that, Nima?
Well, it's not a flight issue, but a danger issue, and no other defendant, and I don't think the Jeffries case is similar, would be released with these types of allegations. If we did, we'd be treating celebrities or folks with hundreds of millions of dollars differently because of their wealth. So I think that's a very strong argument for the government.
We have another back and forth that I want to tell you about. It's almost like the judge is listening to our back and forth, because this is what just happened. And by the way, I really, from a legal point of view, I really am respecting Judge Subramanian. He's challenging both sides appropriately here. This is what he says, Elizabeth, the AUSA, Slavic, the prosecutor says, we're not seeking his continued detention based on his wealth, but rather danger, risk of flight, and obstruction. The judge says, is obstruction your main argument? The prosecutor says, danger to others. So the judge says, so not risk of flight? And the prosecutor says, we still rely on that too. What'd you make of that?
I think it's important that they don't forfeit any of the arguments, and I think they're all equally important. I do think I'm glad that they've highlighted the danger issue. Again, so much of this comes back to that video of him and Cassie Ventura. He has assaulted her on that video. He later admitted to that. So that's something that prosecution can point to and say, look, there's a possibility that could happen to other people as well. It's right here in black and white on video. So I think that's one of the more strong arguments. But I think it's important that the prosecution doesn't forfeit any of the other arguments, including obstruction of justice, so that they can put on a fair trial.
Nima, that risk of flight is interesting because the prosecutors say he's facing 15 years to life in prison on these charges. He has a lot of incentive to flee. His response would be, first of all, my family, my livelihood is here. I'm not going to flee the country. I've been trying to sell my plane. I gave up my passport. I could have fled multiple times. I didn't. You think the risk of flight it works more for Sean Combs or the prosecutors?
I don't think it's a very strong argument for the prosecution. And this is a style issue, right? Credibility is really important. And when the defense writes illegal on a path.
All right, so let's see what we missed here. Judge says, but I want you to address the proposed conditions. the prosecution says there has to be some level of trust that the defendant will follow him. Here, he will not. He cannot be trusted. Consider his conduct in custody after the two judges' findings. The prosecution says his attorneys are enabling his flouting of the BOP rules. Consider the labeling of the pads after the fact. Even family members. The judge says, what's your response to if Mr. Combs says, even if they don't trust me, there'd be a 24/7 security? Prosecution says, if he can't comply in custodial settings, he will not comply if released. What type of security firm? They suggested a co-conspirator, one whose phone was taken only the day before. The second suggestion was a defense investigator in this case. The prosecution says that investigator has been out contacting witnesses. Essentially, they work for him. This would be the defendant buying his way out. The judge says, you've conceded that Bostani's bar does not apply here. You've cited his wealth to release. You've cited his wealth to release him, so can't he use it? Prosecution says we're not seeking his continued detention based on his wealth, but rather danger, risk of flight, and obstruction. The judge says, is obstruction your main argument? Prosecution says danger to others. Judge says, so not a flight risk. Prosecution says we still rely on that. Judge says, tell me about the obstruction. Prosecution says he's continuing violation of the rules. Judge says if a PR campaign is obstruction. Prosecution says that's not what we have here. Rather, it's a concentrated effort to impact the integrity of these proceedings. They don't want to let him go. Let me go. Prosecution says he says, I want to reach the jurors. I only need one. Oh! Judge says he's not permitted to engage in any conduct to impact the jury pool, ? Prosecution says his intent is obstructive conduct. He's violated the so-called gag order. He's the one who's asked for that order. Can't trust him. You like my little money plant? I bought 2 today. I don't know if this one is kind of sick though. I gotta take some pictures. This one has like a little thing on there. Hope it's not sick. Then go bring it back. Money plant or tree, money tree. Let's see.
In that gag order, I thought that was about not releasing grand jury materials or information that hasn't been disclosed to the public. I mean, if you're posting about your birthday, you're posting your music videos, I don't feel that the gag order applies, no? I
don't think so either. Again, unless they're commenting on something specific regarding the alleged details of this case or the indictment or anything like that. I think general content posted on social media, I think it's expected even in cases involving more private figures, let alone someone this public.
Nima, do you agree about the gag order?
I agree. It's not within the limitations of the order. And again, this is just not a good argument for the prosecution. I agree that him trying to influence jurors, that is, but just generally a blanket argument against a PR campaign and social media post, not good. No judge in this country is going to prohibit someone from posting on social media. Just so let's be honest, this is the biggest trial in the country right now, especially now that Donald Trump has won and his criminal problems have gone away. Nothing even compares to the Sean Diddy Combs trial. People are going to be talking about it. Everyone is covering it. Traditional social media. I've done dozens of interviews just on Law and Crime about it. So for a judge to say that you can't post on social media about your birthday with your family, forget about it. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. No appellate court would uphold that order.
Clearly, you do not believe that Kanye West being sued for copyright infringement is the bigger case, and that's shocking. I didn't expect that from you. Okay, we have another update from court. This is from the prosecutor. The court entered the order on October 25th. He started his campaign on October 27th. He couldn't even comply for 2 days. The judge said, what about the What about the Jeffries Abbercrombie case where the government agreed to release on $10 million bond? And then the prosecutor says, we did a letter And by the way, that's the letter that we read before, where basically the government talked about distinguishing Mike Jeffries. It's not only his age. We're talking about the idea that he's not charged with sex trafficking. There was not these repeated patterns of violence like they allege with Sean Combs. And so, again, now it seems like they're getting into that issue, which I think is going to be really, really important. Again, just for our viewers turning in, Elizabeth, you see that the case of Mike Jeffries, who has been arrested and charged with sex trafficking of young men using force, fraud, and coercion. That is a slightly different case because he was granted $10 million bail. He was arrested and
they let him out.
He was arrested after Sean Combs was arrested, but that is a different case that you think prosecutors might have a struggle with.
That's right. I think there's some overlap. Again, it's involving massive public figures, it's involving trafficking charges, but I think there's a big difference, in terms of the racketeering charges, the amount of civil lawsuits. Again, they're alleged civil lawsuits, but against Sean Combs, there's currently over 100 with similar charges. I haven't seen anything similar to that extent of Jeffries. And also, again, it keeps coming back to that video. There hasn't been any form of video evidence, at least that we've seen in the public domain.
I think it's infected.
Yeah, with the Jeffries case that specifically highlights what a danger he could possibly be to the public. Again, at least that we know of yet.
So we're going to go back to more questions that we have from our YouTubers. So if anybody has a question about the case or the hearing, make sure to submit it. Nima, we have a question. This is from Sean D. Cole. Sean D. Cole, so active. Thank you so much. Does the defense argument for bail convince you that he should be granted bail, Nima?
Sean, absolutely not. Sean Diddy Combs should not be released. He is a danger to the community. The allegations are very serious. He probably will be convicted and will spend decades in federal prison. This is a very serious case with a lot of victims. He should not be released.
Here's the thing, and by the way, you'll see.
So the new update says, prosecution says, I think the better comparison is the 2 prior denials of bail here. The judge says, what about his claim the government spliced the video? Prosecution says he apologized. That's the point. The judge says, why did you splice the video, not the original? Why did you use the spliced video, not the original? Prosecution says it was public. What?
Denials of bail here, but the judge said, what about the claim that the government spliced the video? Prosecutor said he apologized. That's the point. Remember, Sean Combs apologized on Instagram 2 days after CNN published that video of him purportedly beating Cassandra Ventura back in 2016. The judge said, why did you use the splice video, not the original? And the prosecutor said it was public. So it makes me wonder, is he open to the argument that there's more context to that video, as the defense says?
Possibly. To me, it sounds like the judge is asking a bit more open-ended questions to get all the information that he can to properly render a decision about this bail hearing. I think if there's any sort of indication that that video of him and Cassandra Ventura in that hotel hallway was doctored in any way or edited, you still have the actual footage of him assaulting her. And again, as you mentioned, he didn't negate that. He didn't say, oh, this is AI or this is fake. He admitted to that. So I think what the defense team is trying to use is there's no indication that she tried to flee a freak off. I think one of the things his defense team called it was a sad glimpse in a consensual relationship, which I think is going to be their main theme in defending this case, is these were all consensual acts. So I think he's just trying to get information here. I think it's hard to negate the facts of that video.
So, Nima, I'll give you a chance to respond, but here's another update. The cell phone footage, this is from the prosecutor. The cell phone footage was grand jury material, and we didn't want the defendant to be able to retaliate against the grand jury witness. We did add blurring of the victim's face. In 2016, the defendant bribed hotel security $100,000 to make it go away. Your thoughts on what we're hearing about this?
Yeah, I'm shaking my head because this is not edited. This is why this is important. First of all, we know that Sean Combs paid $50,000 or $100,000. I've heard both numbers. Apparently $100,000 to try to keep this video. Now, in November, Cassie filed her lawsuit. Combs, through his attorney, says that this is all these are lies. This is all fabrication. This is a money grab. His homes are raided in March. Again, still denies everything. Only after CNN gets this video in May does Combs finally admit to lying for 6 months through his attorney. So he can't be trusted. Here's someone who's denied everything, but you can't deny this video. That's why his apology is important.
Okay, some more updates. So the prosecution says the cell phone footage was grand jury material. We didn't want the defendant to be able to retaliate against the grand jury witness. We did add blurring of the victim's face. In 2016, the defendant bribed hotel security $100,000 to make it go away. The prosecution continues. It doesn't matter if he threw a vase or the contents of a vase. He admitted to it and apologized. This took place in the middle of a freak off. Oh, shit. The U.S. has evidence a male commercial sex worker was in the hotel room at the time. Damn, pimping. Oh, man.
This is from our YouTubers, the best YouTubers in the business. All right, Nima. This is a question from Sally on YouTube. Once Diddy finally goes to trial, how long do you think the full trial will last?
I think it's going to last about a month or so. I mean, the parties have given some estimates, about 3 weeks, I believe, for the prosecution and 1 week for the defense, if I recall correctly. That means I think the defense's case is entirely or mostly going to be based on the cross-examination of those witnesses. They're going to come after them very aggressively. Now, it's still pretty early to know who exactly the government's going to call. And that's important because you have individuals who have filed civil lawsuits. They're going to be cross-examined to say, this isn't about criminal justice. This is about money. So I'm sure the government is going to want to put their very best witnesses and victims on the stand because we know that the defense is going to come after them and come after them very aggressively.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have another update from court. This is from the prosecutor. This is devastating evidence for the trial. This is, again, the 2016 video. It shows why he cannot be released on bail. He is violent and is committed to covering up his crimes. The evidence against him continues to mount. We've learned of punching and kicking employees, partners. So, again, that danger element to the bail analysis. I do have a question, Nima, for you. This is from Sean D. Kolb, again on YouTube. Any chance for a plea deal, and is there any chance the judge will accept it? I'll give my thoughts, but first your thoughts.
I don't think there's much of a chance at all because for there to be a deal, it has to be something that Diddy would accept. And when you're talking about these types of crimes, I mean, the sentencing guidelines are through the roof. Now, maybe he'll get less than the decades in federal prison, I said, if and when he's convicted. But this is someone that doesn't want to be in bail for even the next several months until trial in May. He's not going to voluntarily, give up his empire and concede this. By the way, let's go back and say why I don't think there's going to be a deal. Let's talk about Cassie Ventura, who demanded $30 million reportedly not to file a lawsuit when the statute of limitations was coming up in New York State, where Jesse and Elizabeth are right now. He only wanted to pay her $10 million. For $20 million, his whole life fell apart. Do you think this is someone that's going to admit to anything, plead guilty in court?
I agree with you. That seems to me the only thing. What happens if they say, we have evidence to charge your family with obstruction or other counts? We will not do that if you decide to plead guilty.
Ooh.
Well, family can be an absolute game changer. I'm going to be honest. As a former federal prosecutor, I put more than 1,000 people in prison, and oftentimes, people would plead to exonerate their family members. So I think that could be a potential game changer. But just as the current indictment is and state of the case with no other co-conspirators, I think Diddy's not going to take any deal.
Okay. New update. The judge says, Mr. Agnifilo, ? Agnifilo says, I'm going to have Miss Shapiro lead us off. And so Shapiro says, he was not dragging her back to the freak off. Judge says there was dragging. So now they're going back and forth about this. Shapiro says, I don't mean to. The judge says there was kicking. Shapiro says he apologized. Okay. So see, they're trying to fight back. He did drag her though, right? We all see in the video. Did he drag her? She said he was not dragging her back to the freak. So where was he dragging her to? And kicked her, like stomped her or something. All right, let's see what else. Man, I've seen some crazy stories. There was this story about somebody in New York. I saw this article. NYC migrant allegedly throws pal's beloved pit bull off the 14th floor and walks free. Person murdered my dog for no reason. That's sad. Damn. Just chucked him. I'm surprised they don't have laws over there against that, like animal abuse and stuff. I guess it's Wild Wild West in New York. Judge says, what about the 2018 text messages with victim 1 about violence? Agnifilo says, we have gathered more information about victim 1 even yesterday. I don't want to quote it because it's under seal, and it should be. It was consensual. Oh. Wow. The person that had his dog thrown, his name is Luis, this guy right here, Luis Gabriel Santa Maria, with his beloved pit bull, Kith. So this person chucked this guy's dog out of the 14th floor. Wow, dude, that's crazy. I mean, I thought in most places you get a charge for that. Killing an animal, abusing an animal. Alberto Morris was arrested on Monday and charged with aggravated cruelty to animals, grand larceny, criminal possession of stolen property, criminal mischief, and torturing an animal. He has no prior arrest and was released. Okay, so he was charged, but was released. His charges are non-bail eligible under state law, meaning he can't be held behind bars unless convicted. Damn, that guy over here smiling too and shit. Wow, that's the person that threw the dog. Alberto Morris. The victim says he has PTSD. I still walk around the streets turning my head because I don't know what this man can do. You gotta be kind of cold to just chuck a dog out like that. Wow. Morris, who lived nearby, had immigrated to the U.S. about a year ago. On the night of the horrific incident, the two had gone to a Halloween party where Morris got drunk and aggressive. That scared me. At one point, he was getting too aggressive. He grabbed my bag. Okay, wow. That's crazy. That's horrible. All right, let's check for updates. What updates do we got here? Nothing yet. Okay.
Just from Cassie to Diddy. And again, going back to her lawsuit, and I believe her, she said that she was forced to have sex with male prostitutes while Diddy watched, videotaped, and masturbated. So I believe what she's saying, and there's text messages that corroborate her accounts of what happened. She has said to Diddy that I'm a human being, I'm someone's daughter, you beat me, you kicked me. That's all in text messages, and I don't think the defense can deny that.
Oh yeah, that was provided by the prosecution as examples of what was happening, and then also he allegedly threatened to. This is what the prosecution says. Exposed videos of the freak-offs if she didn't do what he wanted. Now, you're hearing the response from the defense. I've got a question from Ashley Glass on YouTube. Will the Law and Crime Channel be covering the case when and if it happens next year? We will do our best, given the circumstances of no cameras in that courtroom.
Yeah, it's kind of tough, no cameras. Okay, new update. Judge says, I don't want to quote from them, but you know the ones I mean. Agnifilo says, we are proposing an independent security firm. There has been mutually regrettable physical conduct going both ways. There was violence by this other person and by Mr. Combs allegedly. So they're talking about some sealed stuff. They would definitely have to get some type of independent security. We can't use no Diddy security or like his buddies or like some type of. They would have to get some type of independent. But the only problem, even with that, even if you get an independent firm, I mean, who's to say they can't be bought off? Or you just get one person, I'll pay you, I don't know, $100,000. And, let me do this and that. Or when you go outside, go do this and that for me. Whatever. Probably easily buy them off. What a mess. What a mess. Real quick, let me ask you guys about this. I don't know if anybody's followed this kind of drama, but I'm sure many of you have heard of the drink Prime, right? I don't know what you guys think about it in the chat. You like it? Do you dislike it? There's like one that I like. I don't really like all the flavors. Maybe like one. It tastes all right. It's not something that I would go for to drink in the store. I mean, I've had it a couple times. It's okay. Not a bad drink. I mean, but anyway, so there was this drama with Messy Mas, right? Messy's Mas. So they're suing the Prime drink, I think, because they're trying to say that, like, let me see. I thought they were saying that, like, it looks similar or something. Or what was this lawsuit? Messy plus lawsuit. Is suing Prime Hydration for anti-competitive behavior and trade dress infringement. Mass launched globally in June 2024 and was compared to Prime Hydration because of its similar bottle design. Prime allegedly demanded that Mass stop selling its product unless it changes packaging. Mark Anthony International, the distributor of Mass Plus, filed a lawsuit on October 8th, 2024. The lawsuit claims that Prime is trying to monopolize the hydration drink market by unfairly portraying Mass in a negative light. Okay, so maybe they've been talking shit. The lawsuit also points out the differences in the two brand bottles. Honestly, I walked into the store. There was one day, I don't know, it was probably a couple months ago. I walked in the store and I saw this Mossy thing, and I really thought it was the Prime drink. I had to do like a double and a triple take. And that's when I was like, oh, that's a different drink. But they look so similar. It's like the same, it's almost the same bottle. Just different words. So apparently now Prime is countersuing Messy Mas over the bottle design. So there's all this drama. Some people hate Prime. Some people can't stand it. I think it's okay. It's not something that I'm just going to run out for and jump to get. You know? But there's that drama going on with that. All right. I mean, if I'm really dehydrated, I'd probably get like a Pedialyte, put it in the freezer, drink it really nice and cold. Really, it's really good. Or if you're drinking a certain night, if you drink that before you go to bed, you'll be pretty much good the next day, more than likely. Any updates? Okay, we just got an update. So Mr. Combs's lawyer, Shapiro, in the LaFontaine case in 2000, the defendant told someone to lie by phone from the MCC. In the Gotti case from 1996, the head of the Gambino crime family, the witness received a kick in the ass. The government does not have that here. That was, quote, kick in the ass. So the LaFontaine case, let's see, what was that? Is that what they're just talking about? LaFontaine. Let's see what the experts have to say.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the defense is going to try to push. They're going to say, you know, he's entitled to work on his defense while he's in prison. There was no sort of attempt to obstruct justice or try to sway people. Obviously, that's what they're going to claim. I think it all depends on what's in those notes, which we're not going to know about for weeks on end, and what evidence the prosecution has in terms of what did he say. You know, they're saying that they have intercepted recorded calls of him trying to instruct witnesses about what to say. So, you know, I think it's a tough one.
All right, Nima, I want to get another question from you before I have to sign both of you off. We have two new guests that are coming in a minute. We'll take a quick break, but before we do, Nima, this is a question from Ivy D on YouTube. What is the prosecution's counter-argument against it being consensual behavior?
Well, it's going to be the testimony of the witnesses, right? They got to show that force, fraud, or coercion. That's what separates consensual sexual activity between adults. It can be as freaky as the participants want, as long as it's consensual. So they need the testimony of the witnesses. But also, let's not forget, there's a lot of video evidence here, right? Diddy recorded these videos allegedly for his own sexual gratification, but also to maintain control over the victims. But I really think the game changer in this case, Jesse, is if there's a superseding indictment alleging the sex trafficking of minors. That takes consent out the window.
That changes the whole game. All right, so we're going to take a break. We're going to continue covering these updates from what's happening in that courtroom. Sean Combs' bail day. We'll see if Judge Subramanian is more receptive to the evidence. Will he grant Sean Combs bail? We'll wait and see. But Elizabeth Vulai, Nima Rahmani, thank you both so much.
Okay, so they're going to take a break. Let me check for updates. I feel like, I don't know, he's been denied twice already, right? He's been denied twice for bail. I don't know. I don't see them granting it this time again. It would be a big W for him if he did get it granted. They'd really have to keep an eye on this guy. Let's see here. Okay, we read that. So Combs' lawyer Shapiro says, we cited the Trump case. Defendants have greater rights to speak than their lawyers. An Instagram post as well, as I don't know if I can. Judge says his communication from MDC. Shapiro says, he says the prosecution is motivated by racism. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Dr. Pepper. I've never been a big Dr. Pepper fan. It's all right. I'm not. But I have friends that love it. Dr. Pepper. Yo, there was one time I was in Louisiana visiting family, and we had that. Is that called the float? Like the ice cream, and I think you put Dr. Pepper or something on it. That was so good. So bad for you, but so good. Oh, you're not getting notifications? That's weird. I mean, I've heard people tell me that same thing, though. Some people, like you said, sometimes people unsub and resub. I don't know. For me, Discord's weird for me. Like, I get notifications like an hour later. Like, sometimes I get a notification 30 minutes or an hour later after I've gone off. Like, it tells me Icky Mel's live. I'm like, bro, I'm already offline. Okay. Yeah. I still have some. A lot of them have moved out, came to Florida, but I still do have some family over there. All right, let's see. Any updates? Friday. Yo, I don't know. How's the weather for you guys? The weather here in South Florida was like really, really cool this morning. It was 50 degrees. And now it's warmed up a bit. It's like 74. 74. Let me see. But then it's going to start cooling down again tonight. So at 6 p.m., 66, 7, 63. It's going to start lowering by 4 a.m., 52. In the mornings, 50 degrees. It's actually pretty nice because then by in the afternoon, it's like 70 degrees. It's like this really nice, cool, breezy air. It's normally not that cool for us. $50 and rainy. It's 50 and sunny over here and kind of windy. And everybody's sick. Everybody in the house is sick. I'm trying to like avoid it. This morning, I felt like I was getting something. And then, I don't know, thankfully, like by this afternoon, I felt like I feel like I had like mucus kind of. I feel like my nose was starting to drain, but then it kind of stopped. I've been taking like vitamins and like that airborne stuff. Trying to like make sure I'm good. Alabama's 30? Holy crap. Hey, Michael, how you doing? Fort Lauderdale, close to me. The weather's beautiful, right? It's like perfect right now. We normally don't have like this refreshing air flowing around. So it's not just like cool, but it's also some wind blowing. It's really, really nice. All right, let me see. Any updates? What do we have? Okay, we read the Trump case thing. Combs' lawyer Shapiro says this is covered by the First Amendment. Messages they point to are not instructions to lie. There is a barrage of negative media coverage. He has the right to respond to that. The judge says, why not through counsel? Shapiro says, we're happy to do that. Shapiro goes on to say, but we're lawyers. It's not really what we do. Some of these recordings show that he's telling people, just tell the truth. Talk with my lawyer. The judge says, victim 3, you're saying the communications are fine? Shapiro says, yes. Same on witness 1 and 2. Okay. Who's been sick 2 months? Somebody was sick 2 months? There's sometime, I was talking to my mother today. She told me she knew, I forgot who it was. Somebody was like sick for a month or something. With like a cold or something. Just wouldn't go away. I sometimes get like, I used to get, people that have been watching me for a long time, I used to get like those coughs that just last a really long time. Like a dry cough. Who making gumbo, right? Oh my God, that'd be amazing, right? Like a huge thing of gumbo. I feel like I just want to go look up a picture of gumbo. Gumbo. Oh man. Oh, that looks so good. Pneumonia's going around. Upper respiratory infection. Coughing up yellow phlegm. Oh man. I never got the CT scan to see if pneumonia. B12. I had bronchitis one time. I think they gave me like a steroid or something, and I think maybe an antibiotic. I don't know. Yeah, Island. It was just 2 months. So sick and finally a little bit better. Holy crap, that's crazy. They're coming back. All right, let me see if we got some new updates. Read that. Okay. Judge says, what about the communications that are missing? Agnifilo says, witness one reached out to Combs' counsel and asked us for a lawyer. We didn't do anything along those lines because it was an odd request. I don't know the factual answer. Judge says, how do you know? How do you know? Okay. Might have been a mistype. So they're saying the witness one reached out to Diddy's counsel and asked for a lawyer. Oh, damn, Stephanie. Pneumonia that was left untreated ended up in the ICU for septic shock. Well, glad you made it. That's pretty bad. Yeah. I got the flu bee on Halloween. I guess everybody's getting sick because I know a couple people too. They tell me at their jobs people are getting sick. My daughter said one of the kids today didn't come to school because they were sick. I think it's just like going around and stuff. I was thinking of taking her to the doctor, but like she doesn't really have any. It's just like a runny nose, you know. It's like a runny nose, and she mentioned her throat a little bit, but I was thinking maybe let's see how she continues.
His family to post things online that might potentially influence a jury. So keeping that in mind, Ms. Shapiro, again, Sean Combs' lawyer, says, this is covered by the First Amendment. Messages they point to are not instructions to lie. There is a barrage of negative media coverage. He has a right to respond to that. The judge asks, why not through counsel? Shapiro says, we're happy to do that. Shapiro says, but we're lawyers. It's not really what we do. Some of these recordings shows that he's telling people, just tell the truth, talk with my lawyer. And then the judge says, victim 3, you're saying the communications are fine? And Shapiro says, yes, same on witness 1 and witness 2. The judge says, what about the communications that are missing? Agnifilo, this is Mark Agnifilo, this is Sean Combs' other lawyer, says, witness 1 reached out to Mr. Combs' counsel and asked us for a lawyer. We didn't do anything along those lines because it was an odd request. I don't know the factual answer. The judge responded, how do you know not now? How do you know no? Or how do you not know maybe? Oh, it's how did you not know? That's exactly. How did you not know? And Sean Combs' other lawyer, Tenny Garrigo, says, there was a message from Mr. Combs to witness 1. I'll like to give it to you under seal. Prosecutor Foster may know it does not give rise to the level of obstruction. I do not have the actual message. Brian, I'll start with you. A lot of back and forth here. It's about whether or not his communications are a form of obstruction. It's about whether or not him even initiating a social media campaign would be to improperly influence a jury. This all goes to the issue, is he a danger on the outside? Is he flouting the rules inside? He cannot be released outside. What are you taking away from this back and forth I went through?
Well, the fact that they're debating it is healthy for him. It sounds like our judge here is trying to give a real fair analysis to all this. And this is a collision between First Amendment rights, as far as I'm concerned, and some of the requirements under bail, if there should be bail given. You're not supposed to have contact with witnesses. You're certainly not supposed to intimidate witnesses, but you're also able to defend yourself and marshal a defense and speak your mind as a defendant. And judges always have a very difficult time trying to balance those two constitutional issues. And I think this judge is struggling with it because this is a man who's on trial for his life. His liberty's been taken away from him, and he's fighting back. And that would be something that one would expect of someone who's been accused of heinous crimes. So I think that today is probably, as I think you've described it, really the first opportunity for there to be a healthy debate on why he should be released.
And Bradford, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to that as well. I do want to let you know there was another update where Ms. Garagos, who again is one of Sean Combs' attorneys, says, my client obeys me. For example, on victim 3, he stopped using ASAP and other phone lines. The messages with witness 1 were pre-arrest. He obeys us. He came to New York. In the Bureau of Prisons, when I tell him not to do something, he does it. So in other words, if you have concerns about him flouting the rules, he will listen to us. We'll tell him what to do. What do you think?
I think that's an argument that I've often made, and I think a lot of defense attorneys make in terms of that our clients will listen to us if we tell them what to do and what not to do. And in certain circumstances, you have clients that have not been in a situation like this before, where they're in custody, where they are getting a barrage of allegations against them. Some may have some basis of truth and some may not. And you've seen that over and over again in this case. There have been reports of different things that went on and different allegations against Sean Combs that they have then found out, oh, these are just rumors and they're not true. I think that it's not a bad thing.
Mel get NAC and corseted with Sync D3 bit C added. If you want IDM the stuff, it's cheap.
DM it to me. Thank you. I used to have Quercetin, but I don't think it had NAC in it. And I heard Quercetin is really good. I'm actually, it might be expired though, because I had it for so long. But yeah, if you want to DM me and send me the link, I'll check it out. I was like a little good supplement.
Our company or even when a defendant takes it on himself to have family members talk about the good thing that he's done in the past and the charitable things that they've done in the past. When you have a case like this, where they are just every day, there's something that is coming out, something that is leaked by either the government or a party that's involved or someone that's interested in the case, where it is affecting, that could have affected a jury. I think that, that release of that Cassie tape, and I keep going back to that release of that Cassie tape, I think the tape was released because they knew that she was going to be somewhat blamed for the behavior that happened, that they would know that she would participate in these different things with different individuals, and they wanted to make sure that was cut off.
So there's a new update, and this is Shapiro, Combs' lawyer, says, I submit that the charges in the Jeffries / Abbercrombie case are worse than here. They allege an international sex trafficking business. They were AR'd and forced to engage in sex from the butt, EDNY says DKT9. So they're saying with this case, I never followed this case. They're saying this case was worse, according to Combs' lawyer, and they were able to get a bail. I think they said 10 million. They're like, they're able to get a bail. Why can't Diddy get a bail? They're trying to argue that.
To get a bond. Certainly the bond package is pretty extensive in my opinion. A $50 million bond is nothing to sneeze about.
And to go into that, about one of the areas where I think Judge Subramanian seems to be receptive. He actually told prosecutors early this week, be prepared to talk about this. It's coming up right now, and Brian, I'll ask you about this. So this Ms. Shapiro, who's Sean Combs' lawyer, says, I submit the charges in the Jeffries Abbercrombie case are worse than here. They allege an international sex trafficking business. They were raped and forced to engage, and I'm not going to say, but in a certain kind of sex acts. And by the way, the argument here is, and this is what the Judge Subramanian said, is distinguish prosecution, why it is Sean Combs, after putting forward a bail package, as we said, $50 million, 24/7 private security firm, limited visitors, visitor logs, no internet use, no phone use. Why is he denied bond when you have Mike Jeffries, the former head of Abercrombie and Fitch, who was just arrested and charged with sex trafficking? Why is he out on $10 million bail? And by the way, the prosecution responded earlier, and they had a back and forth about this. He's 80 years old. Sean Combs is 55 years old. Sean Combs is charged with racketeering. He's not charged with racketeering. Sean Combs has alleged instances of prior violent behavior, not the instance with Mike Jeffries. But here you're seeing, Brian, where they're saying, we actually think the Jeffries case is worse. What do you make of that?
Well, it's brilliant. And I think that's the road they have to travel because it's precedent. You know, you're not supposed to have different rulings for like-minded cases. Disparity in treatment is always frowned upon in the federal courts. And here they have a significant public interest case where bail was set at $10 million by agreement. It wasn't debated over. The government agreed to it. Now we come over to Sean Puffy Combs' case, and they're objecting to 5 times that amount for someone who I don't believe has ever been convicted of a federal crime or a felony. I could be wrong about that. And they're putting restraints in place that make the previous bail package pale in comparison. So they're right to make this argument. It's precedent. It's precedent within that jurisdiction. And I think the judge is going to look hard at it. You know, you've now got 2 rulings that have gone against him. So he's got to look at those rulings and those judges. But he's also got a situation where the government has agreed to bail in a situation that's, if it's not as bad, it's pretty darn close by accusation. Mm-hmm.
And look, I think they, you know, look, it's also a different court. This is a different, this is the Southern District of New York. That was the Eastern District of New York. But even you put that difference aside, this seems to be one of the more compelling arguments put forward by the defense. Bradford, we're also taking questions, by the way. So anybody who has questions about this case, submit them on YouTube. If you have questions about the hearing, submit them. We have this interesting question from Sahara Useri on YouTube. Why did Combs get a new judge to begin with? It's interesting, right? Because I believe we had a district court judge or a magistrate judge, then a district court judge, now Judge Arun Subramanian. Why do you see a reassignment of a case like this? Why is it now in the hands of Judge Arun Subramanian? Why do you see this happen, Bradford?
Well, on federal cases, we always appear to begin with in front of a magistrate. That's usually the first person who hears the case, if it's a bond issue and or if it's even a preliminary issue. A lot of times court judges will give magistrates the power to rule over different kind of motions to suppress and motions to dismiss. But we always go in front of a magistrate that's associated with the judge, and then generally you then go to the judge that's going to have your case. It just depends. Sometimes you go to a temporary judge until it gets assigned. A lot of times judges don't have time for the type of case that it is, or they might not have the schedule that will behoove a trial in a certain period of time. I believe that this trial is being set for April, and it might be the other judge that was assigned already has a case that's set for April. That's not uncommon. I don't see that as like unusual. We've seen that in many cases. I've had many cases where judges have changed at the beginning of the case. It's usually unlikely that at the end of the case that you have a judge that'll change once they've heard motions and once you've done discovery and things of that nature. But I don't find anything of that unusual. Magistrates are always common. You always go in front of a magistrate first, and those are usually randomly assigned. And then a judge is randomly assigned, and then another judge can take over at any time. It's not that big of a deal.
And by the way, I wish we had cameras in the courtroom, but based purely on the arguments that we're seeing and have seen with Judge Subramanian, I feel confident to say This feels like a very fair, well-reasoned judge. The way he was pressing the prosecution, the way he's been pressing the defense, it's really something to take note of. And that's kind of the judge that's exactly the kind of judge you want in these cases. There's a question that we have from Samian on YouTube. I'm curious, Jesse, why did the prosecutor not reference the R. Kelly trial? They might not have referenced it today, but it was in their filings. I think it was even in the very first bail filing. They referenced the R. Kelly case. They referenced the Jeffrey Epstein cases as why it would justify bail for Sean Combs.
Okay, so update, Combs' lawyer Shapiro. While in Jeffrey's case, one defendant is 80 and the other 71, Mr. Combs is 55. I hate to say it, that's not that young. Judge says the U.S. suggests he won't follow conditions. Shapiro says these conditions are more restrictive than in prison. We got 24/7 surveillance, audio microphones you can tap and listen to. I don't know if they can tap into his phone. You're going to have your own independent security. 24/7 round-the-clock security. Maybe there's going to be a cop parked outside. I don't know what else. Maybe they have a helicopter outside flying over every now and then. Maybe they need to put him on a little island or something where he can't leave or something like that. They're saying he's more locked up and detained inside his own place. The only thing is he'll have the comfort of his home, I guess. Diddy.
And some of those judges that are more thoughtful and more fair-minded issue written opinions, which he may do in this case.
We have another update from court. Ms. Shapiro, again, defense counsel for Sean Combs. While in Jeffrey's case, one defendant is 80 and the other is 71, Mr. Combs is 55. I hate to say it. It's not that young, because that was one of the things the prosecution said. Like, you're dealing with an 80-year-old. Yeah, you're dealing with an 80-year-old. You're dealing with an 80-year-old. He's 55. You know, he's much younger. He's more of a danger. The judge says the U.S. suggests he won't follow conditions. Shapiro says these conditions are more restrictive than in the prison. Again, I kind of laid out what some of the conditions are. Bradford, your thoughts?
I think the argument that one guy's 80 and one guy's 55 is, if I was a judge, I think that would fall on deaf ears. The 80-year-old might be more willing to do something crazy because he's 80. You know, it's like he only has so much time left. Anytime you give an 80-year-old is going to be a life sentence. So if the guy gets 5 years and he's 85 years old, that's not that young. So the argument itself is not great about the age. I think the stronger argument is maybe that in the RICO charges, they're charging some sort of violent behavior. That's probably a stronger argument because the Abercrombie and Fitch CEO doesn't have a history of alleged violence or participation in violence. But the allegations of the sex trafficking are very, very, in my opinion, are worse for the CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch. And it's just, it's funny that it just by happenstance, these cases happen together. If it didn't happen together, you'd have nothing to compare it to. You'd have to go back to a different sex trafficking.
All right. Mr. Agnifilo says, where is the home he'd be in? Sorry, the judge said that. Mr. Agnifilo, where is the home he'd be in? Agnifilo says, we don't want to give the address, but it's on Star Island. There's a causeway. There's a dock, but there would be no boats. The judge says that's not going to work. Where in New York? Ooh! He was trying to go back to his island in Miami, South Florida. Living the life. Little island on the causeway. There's a boat dock. There's a helipad. There's an underground compartment probably. What else did he say? Yeah, a dock, but there won't be no boat. The judge said, hell no. Hell to the nah. Where in New York? You have to find a shack in New York somewhere. Some warehouse or something. All right. So Agnifilo replies, there is an apartment on the Upper East Side. We have one available, 3 bedrooms. The judge says, where are the 24/7 security going to be? Agnifilo says, would you like to speak to them or me? It's Patriot Security. They merged with Crisis 24. It almost seems like the judge is kind of entertaining it. Oh. What? And there's another update. Agnifilo says there'd be 2 security guards in the apartment and 1 downstairs, so a total of 3. No access to phones or the internet except for calls with counsel arranged by the security personnel. This is more restrictive than MDC. It almost sounds like he's kind of considering it. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Uh-oh. All right, let me send this. Damn. Who? Ban this person? I don't even see the person in the chat that you're talking about.
Yep, all right. We had a question from Sean.
I mean, there's mods there. I think they can handle it. I'm pretty sure. Bum, 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 bum. Booler, what's up, man? What's up? So, 3-bedroom apartment in the Upper East Side. First, they try to pull a quick one, try to come to Miami. Just said, hell no, you're gonna be here right in New York. You ain't going to Miami. So, 3 security guards, no access to phones or internet except for calls with console. Okay. Agnifilo says, Mr. Combs would avoid all contact with anyone who may be a witness. I think he has the right to do that. But I want to make it easy for the court as possible. We are going to investigate thoroughly before the May 5th trial. He has a right to assist. Uh-oh. Damn. Can Diddy get out?
That are presumed innocent, and he is.
And from the prosecution's point of view, you know, in one hand, if he is let out, engages in obstruction, they can not only have the bond revoked, but gives them more evidence for potentially a superseding indictment, more evidence for at a trial. But the downside is they don't want to be in a position where witnesses are threatened or intimidated and don't cooperate with the government. So it's kind of a tricky situation here. We have an update here. Bradford, I'll go to you. Agnifilo says, Mr. Combs would avoid all contact with anyone who may be a witness. I think he has a right to do that, but I want to make it as easy for the court as possible. We are going to investigate thoroughly before the May 5th trial. He has a right to assist. Your thoughts?
I think that, like I said before, I think that, you know, every argument that they're making is falling on ears that are open instead of deaf ears. Whenever you're a defense attorney, and Brian knows this as well as I do, and you're representing a high-profile individual, sometimes there are preconceived notions, and the judge has kind of already made up their mind while you're arguing, and you can see it in their face. They might give you a what seems to be a fair shake, but ultimately they have made up their mind. In this case, as the argument is progressing and his attorneys are adding on to the bail package that he's not going to have any contact with anybody, he's not going to have any phones. And a lot of times when I have clients, high-profile clients in federal or state court, and I offer 24-hour security, I usually hire ex-FBI, ex-DEA, and I'm sure the company that he has is probably along those same lines that give credibility to the security that's going to be watching him and making sure who's checking in and who's signing out and things of that nature. All those things add up in a judge's mind to assure them that they're doing everything possible to kind of stay out of the way and not get in trouble. I honestly do think, listening to what's going on, the judge is giving serious consideration to allowing him out on bond, which to me is a surprise because a lot of times in federal court, you don't get that fair shake. When you have these allegations and you're representing someone who's high profile, a lot of times these judges have made up their minds. I mean, we want to feel like every judge is fair. We want to feel that the judicial system is fair. is fair, but a lot of times that the
Okay, we've got another update. Judge says the government is saying Mr. Combs would be paying these people. It comes down to trust. Combs's lawyer, Agnifilo, says it's a different relationship. These are professionals that are only going to be in his life for 8 months. It's a high-profile case. Yeah, I don't know. If Diddy's paying him, I don't know. I'm your boss. So bring me in a cell phone, bring me in a laptop, bring me in some baby oil, bring me in some pills, bring me in something, I don't know, some lubricants and stuff. Laced lubricants, right? Who knows if it's laced? You can bring in all kinds of stuff. Agnifilo says he's been in jail 66 days without a laptop. He only got one a few hours ago. What is unique here is to have waited 9 weeks to get a laptop into the MDC. Judge says the solution is for you to come to me. We can call these hearings which get things done. You just told Agnifilo, well, you need to come to me to get things done then. 9 weeks. Def looped up. Damn, I wonder how this is going to go. Agnifilo.
Mark Agnifilo, again, Sean Combs' defense counsel, says it's a different relationship. There are professionals that are only going to be in his life for 8 months. It's a high-profile case. He goes on to say he's been in jail 66 days without a laptop. He only got one a few hours ago. What is unique here is to have waited 9 weeks to get a laptop into the MDC. The judge says the solution is for you to come to me. We can call these hearings which get things done. Okay, so that's a separate issue about what the resources he has. The question, of course, Brian, is, can you trust the security team? Prosecutors say, A, they have the connections to him, but B, even if they didn't, he has a way to compromise people. If he's in prison, if he's in jail right now at the MDC and he's using inmates' PAC numbers to make phone calls, that's the question. Can we trust the security team? What do you make of that?
As my brilliant colleague just pointed out, the way to go would be to make sure that you've explained to the court that you've got a team that is beyond reproach. And I'd be a little stunned if that's not the case. They should have former FBI, former New York.
Yeah, if I was on that side, yeah, we have a security, whatever. But if you guys want to hire your own or the prosecution, well, I don't know about the prosecution, but want to hire a different company, we're open to that. Agnifilo says, I have a whole presentation ready about the tape. But if you've got enough, I can save everyone 15 minutes. The judge says, I have reviewed it. Who is here from pretrial services? Pretrial service says we maintain conditions insufficient. What tape they talking about? I have reviewed it. So pretrial service, we maintain conditions insufficient. I mean, what else do they want? We could disappear, though. Like, was that Russell Simmons? Maybe he could take a private jet or something. Hightail it.
4-hour security for 8 months. It's going to be $250,000, $350,000, whatever it's going to be. And I instruct my client that we put that money in my trust account, and that or a company is hired to pay them separately from just the defendant. So they're not relying on the defendant to get a paycheck. It kind of takes that sting out. I mean, there's always going to be a sting of, hey, I'll give you an extra $1,000 if you do X, Y, Z. You can never kind of get rid of that that kind of thing, but you can take out one of the links in the chain and say they're going to be getting their paycheck from either ADP or they're going to get the paycheck from my law firm, but they're not going to be relying on the defendant to get paid, and they can't be threatened like, hey, you're not getting a paycheck unless you let me use your phone. A lot of times that also helps in these situations where a judge is asking about, how is this going to work with this 24-hour security? And they're going to be behooving to him because he's the one who's paying it. I think it takes out one of those links, and it also benefits the court's decision. It eases their mind on that issue.
Brian, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to that, but we also have another update from court. Mark Agnifilo says, I have a whole presentation ready about the tape, but if you've got enough, I can save everyone 15 minutes. The judge says, I have reviewed it. Who is here from pretrial services? Pretrial services comes forward and says, we maintain conditions are insufficient. The judge says, have there been other cases with private guards? Pretrial services says, not that I'm aware. What do you think, Brian?
Happens all the time. Pretrial services, they do a great job, but, they're a government entity. And in a case like this, the default position always for pretrial is going to be detain. It's easier for them to do that. This judge knows that. One of the other things that came to mind while I was listening to Radford was, I wonder if the government didn't do themselves a disservice by this untimely search of the cell.
Yeah.
Where they shook his cell down. They allegedly looked at privileged materials. That's a no-no. And I don't think this judge was all too pleased with it. And I think he started doing the math in this case and started thinking to himself, it may be easier for everybody, including the government and the prison officials, if we let this guy pay a lot of money for a private security firm to keep him from fleeing, and we'll get this case tried in a timely fashion. I won't be running into court every week or two with a complaint about discovery. He didn't get his computer. We've got so many terabytes to go over. We don't have the ability to defend. It puts so many issues into a case that can be easily resolved with agreeing to the bail package. So it was just another thought.
And
yeah, Brian's 100%.
Yeah, Bradford, jump in on that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's 100% correct. So first of all, there's been cases in New York. I've had cases in New York where we've recommended private security and got granted private security. And around the country, when you look at these high profile cases, there's been many, many cases where private security, one of them is an NBA young boy who had a case in Louisiana. He had private security as part of his bail package in Utah. Kodak, who I represented, he had a private security as part of his bail package. It's happened many, many times. And I think the number one takeaway that Brian is so right on is that this searching of his jail cell was so very stupid by the government. Yeah, and they just can't help themselves. Like it's really sometimes, they can't help themselves. Even when they have cases that they feel are good, they want more.
Well, just to be fair, they said this sweep of the MDC was comprehensive. It wasn't just aimed at Sean Combs. His defense team says it was a pretext, but just to give you the other argument.
I have a very cheap bridge for sale for you. Listen, I think that this was. I think he was a pre-target. I find it very hard to believe that it wasn't. You had a specialist that was there that normally is not there. He's taking pictures of items that have nothing to do with what they're searching for, phones and drugs and things of that nature. Right. I find that very hard to believe. And it just is shocking sometimes when you look at the government when they have so much power.
Yeah, no. All right, we got a little update. Prosecution says, consider witness 1, a participant in multiple freak-offs. Defendant continued to contact witness 1 after counsel was retained. The Instagram post was planned for a week using Contact Me ASAP and other inmate codes. Multiple freak-offs. Defendant continued to contact witness 1 after counsel was retained.
Dream that this was just, this was something that was going to happen, and we didn't mean to get his notes. And even though we had his notes, we had a team. We put up a Chinese wall. They have every excuse in the book, but once you taint a case with something like that, it's very hard to regain a judge's trust. And I think that's why a lot of these questions are being asked of the prosecution. And in addition to this guy who got out, the CEO of Abbercrombie and Fitch, I just think a lot of things came together for Sean Combs to give him this opportunity. And this is his best shot.
So we have another update from court where the prosecutor has now jumped in and said, consider witness 1 a participant in multiple freak-offs. Defendant continued to contact witness 1 after counsel was retained. The Instagram post was planned for a week using Contact Me ASAP and other inmates' codes. Really, really interesting there about that, basically suggesting that Sean Combs is engaging in obstruction. I wanted to ask you, we have a question from one of our viewers that I think is fascinating. And Brian, I'll throw it to you. Are there any additional bail conditions the judge could impose on Sean Combs? Could the judge place Sean Combs under the supervision of the Federal Probation Office?
You know, I have never seen that being done. I mean, you know, anything that the probation office could do would pale in comparison to what the defense has already submitted. You know, you put somebody on a bracelet. I mean, they don't have the resources to have 24/7 guards in the U.S. Probation Department. More importantly, that's not their role. So, fair question. Why not have the feds protect him and police him while he's out? It's not the way the system works. And more importantly, I think to all of this is, you know, there has to be an ability for somebody to defend themselves. And what the prosecuting team seems to be relying on here is his efforts to really defend himself. He is looking for help. He is looking to try to line up witnesses, to marshal a defense, to reach out to allies, to get friends and family to get on social media so he can start not winning the battle, but just try and making the landscape a little bit easier and more even. And so I don't know what this judge is going to do, but I would tell you constitutionally and legally, the easy thing to do would be to allow this bail package to be put in place. And the worst thing that could happen for the defendant would be if he spit in the face of the court once the court gave this to him.
Yeah. And by the way, that brings me to another point. So Bradford, we have an update from court. The question becomes what he was allegedly doing while at the MDC. We can have a back and forth about whether or not he was actually engaging in obstruction and what the contents of his messages were, versus was he just violating the Bureau of Prison rules. If they tell him not to make a phone call or they tell him not to do this, whatever the contents of it were, if he violates the rules, the idea is he violates the rules of the Bureau of Prison. What makes you think he won't violate the rules of his bail? The reason I say that is because the prosecutor said his family member said the lawyers say not to do it, and the defendant responds, I don't care, it's my birthday. This is in regards presumably to that whole social media campaign about surrounding his birthday and the birthday video. So the idea would be he just didn't care. He violated the BOP rules. The judge said, Ms. Shapiro said sharing codes is common with other inmates and the conduct was covered by the First Amendment. The prosecutor says, the Bureau of Prisons handbook prohibits this. So it becomes a question, the content of what he was doing, Bradford, versus did he just straight up break the rules? And if he just straight up broke the rules, is that a concern for why he shouldn't be granted bail?
So the rules that he broke are broken on the daily basis. Like it's so idiotic when they just overshoot every time and say like, oh, you know, it's three-way calling. He broke the rules. I don't even know how many times. I'm sure Brian has been through the same thing. I don't know how many times our clients call us with three-way calls and using someone else's PIN. And it's not that they want to discuss anything. It's all attorney-client privilege when they call us, unless it's a three-way call and there's someone else on the line, then it's not. And I always let my clients know that. But a lot of times they'll use other people's PINs for different reasons. Like even when they call me from a different PIN, it's because they feel like the government's still spying on a discussion between them and their lawyer. And they could be right. You know, it's not like they're wrong. And a lot of times, or they want to call, you know, they're married and they want to call their girlfriend. So they instead they use one of the other guy's PIN numbers. It's so commonly done that I don't even consider it a flagrant violation of the rules. I don't even know if they give shots. And what a shot is they give them some sort of a warning or some sort of pink slip for, you know, using someone else's. I don't even know if they do that anymore because they're more concerned with the drugs and the cell phones and things that are snuck into the jail. this is such a minor violation that the government here is saying is such a massive violation that unless they can really tie it up,
scrambling and scraping,
he's doing it to contact these witnesses,
scrambling and scraping some shit.
If the judge has real life experience, which I'm sure this judge does, he's going to look at that as a very minor violation of.
All right, so another update. Prosecution says defendant has used at least 8 inmate codes. He's bought them. The judge says they say contact me ASAP operates through TrueLinks, Trust Fund Limited Inmate Computer System. The prosecution says it's not permitted. In the Jeffries, one is detained. The judge says a foreign national. So they're trying to get him on these calls. There's these switching of inmate codes, but with this guy we were just listening to, they do it all the time. It's a common thing. I'll give you my code, but you know what you got to do, right? How is he earning those codes? He's probably just offering him different, I forgot what they call it. He's putting stuff on their books. Again, snacks. You know what you got to do for that code. Diddy.
It happens every day. And it goes back to that central thing that I keep thinking, this judge seems like a really brilliant guy. The headaches here are all driven by the fact that they've taken away his liberty before his trial. Right. All those headaches, every single one of them, put aside for the sake of argument the government's concern about threat, every one of those headaches that inure to the defendant in terms of constitutional protections go away.
Yeah.
All of the headaches for the court in policing this go away. They become somebody else's problem, and know well that if there's one issue, somebody goes sideways a little bit, somebody makes a phone call somewhere.
Right.
He's detained within 5 minutes of that incident. So the easy thing to do here, and I've been kind of, saying this for a month, is to let a guy have a $50 million bail package.
I'm going to give you another question, Brian, because you know what? You're right. We've been beating the same kind of drum a little bit. I have another question for you from one of our viewers. Before I get to that, let me just give everybody an update about what's happening in court. Prosecutor says defendant has used at least 8 inmates' codes. He's bought them. The judge says they say contact me ASAP operates through TrueLinks, the Trust Fund Limited Inmate Computer System. Ooh. The prosecutor says
Jake Paul's talking his shit now. Oh, man. Jake Paul, look at this. He said, and if you don't know, this is the guy that boxed Mike Tyson. I was disappointed with that fight, but Jake Paul just posted this. This was like an hour ago, I guess, or something, but it says Dana hits his wife. He's talking about Dana White, the UFC owner. Dana White hits his wife, allegedly. Connor's a convicted R. That just came out today in a civil case. But I'm the bad guy. So no people like me suck a bunch of fingers. I said, that's the bad guy. Huh?
There'll be a conviction. That conviction will be part and parcel of the evidence in the civil case.
Shit. Somebody said Dana hits his wife. Connor's a convicted R. Jake hits old black men for cash, but I'm the bad guy. Oh, you defrauded the American people with that fake fight and ruined the reputation of an American icon. Oh, man. Oh.
Prosecutor says this is more similar to the cases where detention was ordered, talking about R. Kelly, Keith Raniere, Larry Ray. Bradford, if you're sitting in that courtroom and you're representing Sean Combs and the prosecution mentions these other people, R. Kelly was charged with sex trafficking and racketeering. How do you distinguish Sean Combs from those cases?
Well, the funny thing is, and it's not that funny, is that different areas have different issues with bond and how bond packages are done. In the R. Kelly case, I don't think, number one is they came up with $50 million. They didn't have 24-hour security. They didn't have electronic monitor, taking away his cell phones, his computers, etc. They didn't have any of that. So if you want to compare apples to apples, I think, and my opinion, is that the best case scenario is that Abercrombie & Fitch CEO. I keep going back to it. It happened very soon in time. It was in an area that is right next to New York City, which is the Eastern District. He was allowed to surrender. He was given a $10 million bond. The guy still, nobody even knows. If I was in a room with the CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, I wouldn't know him from anyone, right? If I'm in a room with Sean Combs, I'm going to recognize him right away. So it's a little bit of a different situation. The CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch can disappear to Morocco. No one's going to recognize the guy.
He's got. Right? I mean, have you seen his face? He's got a quite a distinguishable face, but that's a separate kind of issue. But anyway,
I have. And the common man does not know who the CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch is. I would argue that Sean Combs is known pretty much worldwide, especially even at this point, and that I think lends itself to really distinguishing him from the rest of these individuals.
So the judge just said, I suggest both parties put in letters by Monday at noon about what type of communication Mr. Combs may engage in. Monday at noon. I see people from the second row standing up. Combs' lawyer, Tony Rico. We had to email for a week to get him to file folder. So I don't know. Does this mean the judge is leaning towards maybe giving some type of bail?
Thing like, someone worth 100 million, if I put up 50, that's really hurts me, right? It's just like if someone was $100 and they put up 50. So the thing is that that's the difference between Sean Combs and these other cases, is that his bond package is completely different than what was being offered in those other cases. And the fact, I can't get beyond the fact that he just stuck around. He didn't go anywhere. Not that he could have. I'm sure the feds had their eyes on him 24/7 before they filed charges. But he stuck around. He didn't go anywhere. He informed them of where he was flying, when he was flying, where he was going, when he was going, during that whole period of.
But yes, I also hope that they don't push till Monday. I hope we get a decision today. I hope he doesn't make us wait.
And instead of allowing him to surrender, like they would allow anyone, I mean, he's there to surrender. Instead of allowing him to surrender, which a judge would have looked upon that favorably and said, he surrendered himself,
the day before.
They go to his hotel and they pick him up at 9:00 at night. It was a real, to me, spit in the face. And I think the reason they did that is because they knew that Sean Combs was trying to organize this PR thing and was trying to put on a good show in terms of, hey, listen, mea culpa, I didn't mean anything on this video, and I'm going to rehab, and all these things that are good for his case. They got, I think, frustrated that the perception was starting to sway a little bit. And then that Cassie tape came out and perception kind of went down the toilet, because once you see it on video, it's very difficult to then you see all your friends kind of abandon you. So, it just frustrates me when you got a guy that is willing to do all these things and you still don't want to agree to a bond.
Okay, the update. Combs' lawyer Rico says his adult children are willing to obey. He's not a lawless person. We spent hours at the MDC. Mr. Combs was writing down what I said. He's not out of control. DOJ is responsible for the MDC. Those call from me all the time and I hang up. Those call from me all the time and I hang up.
Combs' lawyer Tony Rico said, we have to email for a week to get him a file folder. Then he said his adult children are willing to obey.
Bitcoin?
He's not a lawless person. We spent hours at the MDC. Mr. Combs was writing down what I said. He's not out of control. DOJ is responsible for the MDC. Those phone calls from me all the time and I hang up. Just your thoughts on what we're hearing here.
I go back to it. I think this judge is really giving serious consideration to allowing him out and trying to figure out a way to do so where the government's concerns are alleviated.
So the judge, okay. So the lawyer says, Combs' lawyer, Rico, says he has access to cell phones in the MDC, but not under our conditions. He fights, he kicks, he makes phone calls. This can be addressed. Thank you. The judge says we're going to get a decision out prompt next week. No, we want it today. That's what we're here for. Oh, man. Bruh. Ah, man. Let's see what happens. That's disappointing, man. So Monday they got to get these letters in, and then the judge. I guess the judge wants to wait and really process the decision. But it seems like it is. But it's not a flat out no either. It seems like he's really kind of, I don't know, thinking about it, or at least it's giving it a lot of thought, not rushing it. Letters Monday, and it's adjourned. That's it for today. Oh man, I wanted to know today. It's so so disappointing. They're done for today. Mamma mia. So I guess we'll have to see next week. Jeez. There was this really crazy story too. This is, I don't know, maybe for the political channel, I guess, but it's really sad though. I'll just briefly go over it real quick. I was saving these links. I don't know if you heard of this story. So Venezuelan migrant charged with raping his boss's 14-year-old daughter while living in their Colorado home. Like, why? I mean, I'm not trying to victim blame, but why would you? I would never just take somebody into my house. I've always said, with these people, if you're gonna talk it, then you better walk it. So, invite these people into your house. But no, I would not bring one of these people just like that to come stay at my house, and I have a daughter too, bro. You crazy? Let's see what happened. So the Venezuelan migrant who crossed illegally into the U.S. has been accused of R-ing his boss's daughter while he was living in the family's basement in Colorado. Homeland Security sources told the Post. Jesus Alberto Perea Castillo, 20, was arrested in Denver after nearly 3 months on the run. Wow. Following the alleged assault. Police were originally called to a home where Castillo was living temporarily on August 29th when they learned that Castillo allegedly forced himself onto the girl and assaulted her that night. However, he was already gone by the time cops responded. Look at that shit. Jesus Castillo. He left the residence before deputies arrived, the sheriff said. Detectives finally tracked him down to Denver, which borders Jefferson County, to the east, and arrested him this week. He crossed the border illegally in El Paso, Texas. September 2023, he was released by the border agents because there was no room to detain him any longer. Wow. Just whatever, just release him. The Venezuelan migrant said he was bound for Orlando, but ended up in Colorado, where he was arrested in May for allegedly possessing tools for forgery and counterfeiting and larceny. Following the assault, ICE lodged the detainer for Castillo's arrest. Per sources, he is currently in custody. I wouldn't be surprised if they release him again. Denver has received 40,000 migrants since December 2022. Okay. And there's also this gang thing that's happening. There's no indication from authorities that Castillo has had ties to the gang. I wonder what happened. So I don't know if this guy was just trying to be nice, trying to be nice and okay, come stay with us. You can hear them in the basement, trying to help somebody out. And look what happened. Isn't that crazy too? You try to help somebody out, give them a lending hand. And this is what it turns out to. That's crazy. That's sad, man. Let me see if there's any information. I'm kind of just curious to know if there's any more, how this came to be, how they met each other. No, there's not much information. Let me check another article. I checked one already, an extra one. Just look at this one. That's serious, man. No, there's not really any information on this guy besides what we just read. Wow. It's really crazy, man. It's really crazy out there. I wouldn't be trusting people like that. So we gotta wait till, I guess, next week. Very disappointing. But I guess we'll just have to be patient. Let me see if there's anything else. That was crazy. Yeah. You check the news real quick. What's trending? Oh, Kendrick Lamar dropped an album for those that are into rap and like Kendrick, if you like that music. I haven't listened to it, but that's trending right now that he dropped an album. News. MSNBC apparently is in the tanks right now. They dropped, the ratings have severely, they're doing really bad. Tay K faces life in new trial. That's that rapper that I think he murdered somebody. I don't know if it was one or two people. Young kid. Wow. Bro. So you remember we covered Lake and Riley, right? The person that was like horribly murdered by this guy, Ibarra. We covered the sentencing. We didn't cover like the whole trial, but we covered the story one time a long time ago, and then we covered, or it might have been once or twice, I don't know, but then we covered the sentencing, and MSNBC. This is probably why they're plummeting. The headline is Lake and Riley's killer never stood a chance. For all the political controversies surrounding Jose Ibarra, the outcome of this trial was never in doubt. Why? Why? Like, this guy killed this woman. I think what did he do? Bashed her head, or she had blunt force trauma, strangled her. She struggled for like 17 minutes. Like she died slowly. Like, never stood a chance. I mean, should he have stood a chance? I don't understand that. Like what kind of headline is that? Like, never stood a chance. Like, as if he's the victim. Crazy, dude. Crazy. Crazy. So there's some drama behind that. Oh my God. Now there's more drama, apparently. Kindergarten gender curriculum debate in New York. So there's the school, apparently Hillside Elementary School in New York, has introduced a new curriculum for kindergartners focusing on gender identity, pronouns, and related vocabulary. This initiative has sparked significant discussion on social media, with many users expressing concerns over appropriateness of such topics for young children, leading to some to advocate for homeschooling. Damn, bro. How you guys feel about that? I think kindergarten is just way too young for that. I mean, I don't know. Kids. Let's see. And this is wow, it's just too much. I don't know why the hyper sexualization for these people and these kids, like why they're hyper sexualizing kids. It's just so weird to me. I mean, I get maybe in a certain grade, I don't know, maybe I don't know if they want to like just try to respect these, respect people's whatever they identify as or something, but kindergarten vocabulary, cisgender, transgender, non-binary identity is who you are. This is from the school. The gender at Hillside Kindergarten. I don't know. I don't know. When I was a kid, I didn't give a fuck about this, bro. I was running around, making a mess, like, having fun. I mean, for years and years, I didn't think about or care about this shit. It's odd to me that they're just so, like, interested in kindergartners and, like, the sexuality and stuff and the gender stuff. Just let them be already. Jesus Christ. This is ridiculous already. I don't know. Do something else. I don't know. But they're getting some backlash because of that. Oh. This is so, like, I don't know, it's scary, man. All right. Anything else? You guys remember that doctor too? That was just the one that we kind of briefly covered it. The guy was just walking around naked in his doctor's office. Everybody's clothed and everything. He's just walking around naked. And he's just like taking care of himself and like ejaculating on top of people, employees and shit. And some employees had to take care of him to get raises and promotions and stuff. Then he finally got reported, got in trouble. So weird, yo. So weird. You sent me a message? Jennifer. Can you... Wait. Oh, yeah, you did. Okay. Jake Paul got revenge for Mike, making him cry as a kid. Let me save that. Uh-oh. It's a bad habit of mine. They're coming for me now. It's a bad habit. I can't help it. Jake Paul got revenge for Mike, making him cry as a kid. Dang. All right, let me see. Anything else before we jump off? I guess that's it for now. I will be back later if anything pops off. I am going to be doing like this little event a little later though, like a thing with my daughter. In my apartment comp, they have like they're going to be playing the movie, like a movie thing by the pool. Like everybody's going to go like Christmas PJs and stuff. And there's going to be like snacks and all this stuff. So going to do that for a little while, but after that, I'll be available if we get a chase standoff or somebody goes crazy, because it's Friday night. It's Friday night. Anything can pop off. Anything can pop off. All right. So thank you guys. Take care. Peace. We got to wait.